I'm currently Distinguished Professor at the University of Tennessee in the Department of Plant Sciences, and my specialty is turfgrass science and management. What's nice about this project and this partnership is this is the single largest research grant and contract that the University of Tennessee has ever ventured into. So the University of Tennessee and AstroTurf working together since 2010 has been amazing for advancing the science of both natural and synthetic turf. And as we look at if I had the crystal ball, looking at the lens going to the future, we're really starting to identify, nothing happens fast, and we're starting to identify the right combinations of surfaces. AstroTurf has supported research over the years, and since 2010, 2011, we've been doing this, so it's quite a few years. And what's really interesting is the natural grass work that's come out of it. We've got Dr. Adam Tomes, who was the first one doing all this work, did his master's and PhD here, and now he's a professor at Iowa State University. So, that was supported by AstroTurf. And then we had Dan Strunk, who's now a professor at Western Kentucky, and he was supported by AstroTurf. So you look at the legacy of people that AstroTurf has supported to get degrees in education and then are going on and doing great things at different universities. It's the testament of the model of we want to make all fields safer. And that's my goal. I want any surface that a kid's on being safe. And AstroTurf has had that same vision, whether it's natural or artificial. We want a hand in helping contribute to that. So that's, I think, been a real big benefit for this partnership we've had for the last several years.
I'm Kieran O'Donnell from Sports Labs. I'm the General Manager here for North America. I look after the Sports Labs business here in the North America market. Currently we have 12 employees covering the US, some based in the lab and a lot are based in the field with the field technicians. So Sports Labs is a surface testing company. We test a variety of different sort of sports surfaces, from running tracks to tennis to synthetic turf and even to natural grass. So we cover a large range of different sort of sports. So Sports Labs is almost 25 years old this year. The company started in Scotland by two directors, Richard Nixon and Eric O'Donnell, and now it's grown to an international company. The partnership between AstroTurf and Sports Labs is almost 25 years old as well. One of the very first projects Sports Labs worked on was an AstroTurf field in Ireland. It's a pretty cool history. AstroTurf invests a lot of time and money into testing and research. They have their own research department. They also use a number of different labs, Sports Labs being one of them, to verify and test their products. They do take the time to invest and to listen and try to keep their products performing as well as they can. Investing in testing, in our opinion, is crucial. We need to verify materials and performance and systems before they get installed, because once they've been installed, there's no going back. Great companies invest in this testing and this research before they go to market.
We've been doing this research with AstroTurf for 13 years, and what we do is we are an unbiased, independent resource. And so before it goes to market, AstroTurf is able to fine-tune it, fix the problem, trying to do trial and error, testing it outside in real-world conditions, indoors with our testing lab, but giving the data back and saying, look, this is what's good and bad about the product, so you can refine it to be a better product, a more consistent and safer product is what we're here for. My goal is, when I've been at the University of Tennessee now 21 years, we've built our sports turf research program from looking at different natural grasses to how they evaluate them, to taking it to a whole other level where we've been working for the last 13, 14 years with AstroTurf, looking at both natural grass and artificial for the performance, and not just the performance of the surfaces, but how the athlete to the surface interacts. So when we first started this partnership with AstroTurf, we built a machine called Taft, and that helps us simulate athlete to surface interactions and measurements of cleats, how they interlock with natural and artificial turf surfaces. And we started working with biomechanics and kinesiologists, so we've actually got some studies we've done with different synthetic turf systems indoors over force plates and things right here at the University of Tennessee for AstroTurf over the years. So it's been pretty exciting trying to improve the playability, performance, and safety of both natural and artificial turf surfaces. when it comes to a sports turf surface, it's consistency and uniformity, and they're the key. And so a nice natural grass surface is actually quite uniform, consistent. As it gets worn, maybe there becomes issues of variability. So we've investigated different technologies of doing hybrid stitch systems with sisgrass plots and looking at maintaining that consistency and uniformity. For synthetic turf, trying to keep it consistent and uniform, people think, oh, an artificial turf surface is going to be consistent, but really, any variations in the infill can change how a foot interacts with that surface. So we've done a lot of maintenance research looking at how to keep them consistent, uniform, where that infill depth has been more consistent, looking at different infills, stitching gauges and pile heights to make a denser turf that is more playable, uniform throughout an entire season or several years. Is there an ideal system? We're fine-tuning is what's the ideal system. So it's not just the system or the surface, but it's also the athlete that's playing on it. And then the third component is the cleat. What's the shoe type that the athlete's interacting with that surface? So we're looking at that, and we're going to try to come up with, I guess, what's the best way to, the recipe to say, hey, when you're on this surface and you're this type of athlete performing, these are the types of shoes that are going to give you good performance or great performance, but not put loads on your body. They're going to be so excessive that you might get injured. And we've done a lot of work for Major League Baseball pitches in other countries, maybe Canada, and you know, where it helped with the surfaces to identify what's the best surface for. And it's not just the athlete in the surface. We started looking at the baseball bounce and how the ball reacts coming off the surface and how much splash is coming off of the infill, how fast the ball gets to the shortstop. And we do a lot of these ballistic work looking at high-speed cameras to measure all of these impacts.
Here at Sports Labs, when we deal with synthetic turf, we're looking at a system. So we're looking at how all the components together work to perform for the athlete. We build the samples up and then we test them. We're testing them for a variety of impacts to make sure an athlete can run across them with the force reduction, the vertical deformation and energy restitution to sort of see how the foot interacts with the surface. We're also looking at rotational resistance, so when an athlete's making a plant and turning their foot, how much resistance is there. Along with head impact, so we're looking at the head injury testing to make sure a player, when they fall on it, it is a safe surface to fall onto, along with the Gmax testing as well. And then we take it a step further here in the lab itself, and we actually look at the quality of materials. So we're actually trying to make the system, or in this case, the synthetic turf, be destroyed. So we're looking at the tough wood draw, how much strength does it require to get the yarn out of the turf? How long is the system going to last? So we build a system up and we put it into a machine that's called the Lisport XL, and we try to simulate 8 years of wear on that turf system. That 8 years is a very aggressive test. It's trying to destroy the turf, and we're trying to find out, is that turf going to last in the real world? There is another device called Lisport Classic, as we sort of refer to it. That was what was used in the previous incarnation of that device. It's not as aggressive as the current device, and that's why we would encourage people to look at the Lisport XL over the classic Lisport. We also do UV and heat testing. UV is as looking at how long that yarn's going to last in the field, like with the weathering conditions. So we're looking at sunlight, water. So we're trying to make that yarn perform to its ability. We want to see the difference in the colours of the yarn. So colours do perform differently between themselves. So we're trying to make sure it doesn't matter what colour field you get, it's going to last, which is very important. A hot topic is heat off a turf surface, so we're trying to determine what systems are cooler than others. A lot of people come out and look at just components of the field and say that this is what's going to cool the field. We look at the system, so we're looking at all the materials together working to make sure that system is cool overall, or what its cooling capabilities are. So we put a sample into a heat chamber, we can control the airflow around it, we have the heat lamps set to a certain height above it, and we're recording it constantly for 3 hours, measuring the constant heat of that surface. The tough withdrawal, or tough bind as it's sometimes called, is testing how strong the yarn is, or the tuft has been manufactured into the backing. We don't want that to be too low, because then once the field is installed, you're going to see a lot of fibre loss. So we do want some sort of strength there to that. We're testing the tough bind to make sure a a turf system or a turf product is going to last and that field's not going to shed its turf. Investing in testings, in our opinion, is crucial. We need to verify materials and performance and systems before they get installed, because once they've been installed, there's no going back. And the last thing anybody wants is a failure in a field and having to try and work through what's gone wrong and who's at fault. So we want to try and verify that before it happens. So that's why it's crucial, and like great companies invest in this testing and this research before they go to market.
So my name is Kylie Dixon. I am a research leader here at the University of Tennessee. I have been working with Dr. Sorokin doing research on AstroTurf for the past 12 years.
So this is Taft, and we do a lot of different research here with that that's a lot more technologically advanced than a lot of the research we've been able to do in the past before we created this. And this was all part of the AstroTurf funded grants. Originally was develop a machine that could do rotational traction, and that's kind of what we've done with this. And so what we do is we establish a foot to a 3D printed foot, and so you can see the cleat, it's tied on as it would, and then this guy will rotate around. So you can do a rotational traction as it would go. We put different shoes on there, so the goal was we wanted to be able to test different shoes, see how these shoes do on the different surfaces, to see how the performance is going when you're looking between these. Is there a difference between the organic infills? Is there a difference between weights, and between sizes? So we can put different sizes of a foot on here based upon the 3D printing. So we 3D print a lot to try to get the most accurate representation of a foot that we can. As we're able to do that, we can simulate from a 5-pound athlete, or from a 30-pound athlete, all the way up to a 400-pound athlete if we desired. We can do the change, we can do how fast does the foot turn, when does the foot make contact. So there's forces that go down through here. We have lots of sensors kind of going down through this device. As you kind of see there where they have a modified shoe where they have cut it, where it can be attached to the bottom so you can try the plate. The plate is then lowered down into the surface, and then once it's been in contact, it will then rotate. And so that's what you're seeing here is we're doing different testing right now at different infill depths, looking at some of the different combinations of the turf as well as infill and the shock pads, as we're looking at with a shock pad, without a shock pad, different densities, lots of different things with it. And these are, so we've got a sense that we can get different sensors. One, the torque that it takes to twist it, we can get that. We also know how far does it turn. We know the torque at that angle. Then the pressure that's being put down. So really to help us understand what's happening with an athlete, we're trying to know how far does it turn. It may not turn fully through a surface, so how far is that turn and what is that going to look like? So now we're going to activate the machine. We're going to do a test on there just like we would normally do. I initiate it. It's going through, the computer's telling it what to do. It's lifting up, preparing. Now we're going to engage into the surface. See the rotation as it goes through. It's making its turns to the right and to the left. We're seeing what is essentially if this was your ankle and it was turning, how much resistance is there on the ankle to turn, or would it might get caught in the surface as you're looking at that. So that's as we're trying to figure out what's going on with these surfaces. Sometimes there's some combinations that just don't work, and sometimes there's combinations that are just optimal, and that's what we're trying to figure out is what's the optimal. We've done a lot of testing on natural grass, and so now we're trying to figure out, can we optimize it so that it's close to natural grass, and then could we also optimize it to maybe we can be better in the future than we're looking at that traction levels as we go, because sometimes you can have too much traction, and that can be a dangerous thing, and then there could be not enough traction, then you could slip. And so you don't want, if you slip too much, then you have a loss in performance. But if you have too much traction, then you might have too much performance, and that might lead to greater injury. So you're kind of looking for a sweet spot in between that. So it's not just, oh, we want more and more traction or higher amounts of torque on the ankle. We want to find that kind of happy median to where it's good enough for the athlete to have good performance, but it's also safe for the athlete as well. And that's what we've been doing a lot with this AstroTurf research, is trying to really dial that in. It's not always extremely easy to, you'll get a result and be like, okay, well, we got higher and higher and higher. Well, then there's a certain point to where we're way above natural grass and what anybody could do. And then we're looking at those curves and seeing like how fast are they getting that force on the body? Is it too fast? Is it too slow? So that all helps kind of in the traction. So we're looking at performance, we're looking at safety, we're trying to really kind of encompass it all. It's not just what did it do right now, but how is it going to do in the future. To really, AstroTurf's concerned about the life of the product and not just at the initial install, to see how that's going to go throughout the whole entire time you might have it. So that's also very important, because we also do a lot of testing on perfect stuff, but that also doesn't always tell the whole story. So we want to know what it's going to start at, we want to know what it's going to end at, and then kind of, if there's maintenance, what's happening in between.
Being in partnership with AstroTurf since 2010, over the last 13 years, to my knowledge, no one has supported more natural turf research for sports fields than AstroTurf. And when we began talking back in 2008, 2009 about working together and trying to help identify AstroTurf products to get better, the AstroTurf model was, we know we're not going to have every field in the United States or around the world, but if we're contributing to the research for both natural and artificial turf research to make all fields safer, that's good for them to know that whether it's a natural grass field someone goes with or a different synthetic surface, if they've contributed to helping advance the science to make all surfaces better has been a key. And I think that's why we've been so successful for the last 13 years, is that partnership and having that vision. It's not just one surface, but it's all surfaces.